Hello and welcome to Review for You, a twice monthly journal about people and events of interest in the San Francisco Bay Area. My name is Peter Camarda. I'll be your host for tonight, and we're broadcasting to you live on the San Francisco Public Access Channel, Comcast Channel 76, AT&T Channel 99, and Astound Channel 30. Tonight, I'm very happy to welcome back Urso Chappell. He was a local World's Fair historian and graphic designer and man who wears many hats, and who is just returning from a trip to Shanghai, or is going to show us pictures from his trip to Shanghai this summer. Welcome, Ursa.
Hi there, it's great to be on again.
Great to have you. So let's jump right in, and then we'll be able to go to the pictures pretty quick. So tell us a little bit about your trip to Shanghai, how you arranged it, how long you stayed, and what kind of notes you took, what kind of coverage you did of the fair.
Well, this year's World's Fair, was 2010's World's Fair, is Expo 2010 in Shanghai, China, and it's set to be the largest World's Fair in history. And for me, it was the 8th World's Fair I've gone to. It's going to be the largest as far as size. It's about 1,300 acres, which, for comparison, say Golden Gate Park itself is about 1,000 acres. It hosted 190 some countries, which is a brand new record for most number of countries at a World's Fair. And as of a few days ago, it looks like they're on track to break the record for the most largest attendance at a World's Fair. They've hit the 50 million mark, and they're on track to perhaps go to 70 or higher million visitors, which will be the largest, most visited World's Fair. So I spent there spent 2 weeks there. Thanks to having a press pass, I got to see all the different pavilions, which is pretty much impossible with all the lines to see everything now. Because you can imagine with 190 countries, and then you have corporate pavilions and provincial pavilions and city pavilions. There's a lot to see there in the 2 square miles. So I got to see a lot, and a lot of what I got to see is now even more exciting because the San Francisco Bay Area looks like it's going to be bidding for an expo of its own. So.
Yeah, you were telling me about that earlier. So there's a move to try and bring it, I guess, to San Jose. Is that where they're?
It would actually be in Mountain View in what's now Moffett Field. Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he visited Expo 2010, announced that the San Francisco Bay Area, specifically the Silicon Valley area, was going to bid for Expo 2020. So the site that they're looking at is Moffett Field, and it would turn over the airfield over to a World's Fair. So it would be about 800 acres, and right there, and they have Google in their backyard. NASA's right there on the site already, and they are cooperating with the bid. And there's 4 universities that have their own buildings on site, and so that's a possibility of expanding that and getting them involved. And then Google's across the street. So
there's quite a pool of talent and money and resources.
Yeah, so it's really exciting about what could happen to Moffett Field in the next 10 years. So I mentioned all that mostly just sort of give context to a lot of what I'll be showing for my trip to Expo 2010, to sort of imagine something of this scale, maybe a little smaller, right in our backyard in 2010 or in 2020 in Mountain View.
Well, now the fair in Shanghai was actually the largest World's Fair in terms of square mileage in history. Is that right?
Yeah.
And probably one of the most expensive, I guess, given all the renovations that they did. Now, you actually were in Shanghai before the fair opened, so you had a sense of how much renovation and rebuilding that they did?
Yeah. Well, they spent billions and billions of dollars on this World's Fair, but a lot of it is on the infrastructure. And one of the things you have to sort of realize is that the World's Fair, like an Olympics or a World Cup or any sort of large international event, it provides the city an opportunity to completely make over itself and redo a lot of infrastructure, create new infrastructure as part of that. And that's exactly what Shanghai did. Shanghai until the mid-90s didn't have any subway system at all, and they've added several subway lines just coordinated with hosting the expo. So we would hope that here in the Bay Area that might also happen. We could sort of beef up a lot of our transportation and at least
finally
the peninsula.
Send Bart down to San Jose.
But,
and that kind
who knows? Maybe. But it would be a great opportunity to really work on the infrastructure aspects of that right along the 101 corridor. So that's a lot of the money that is spent on this is actually spent not just in the site but redoing the whole city. And you mentioned that I visited Shanghai last year in September 2009, and I got to see everything under construction. It was like this huge empty field with buildings sort of being constructed, and kind of wonder how is this all going to happen. And on May 1st, everything was done. And
Well, that's the glory of the Chinese, that they were able to bring everything together in time.
that's true. That's true.
Advantages to a planned economy sometimes, I guess. Well, let's take a look at some of the pictures now, because we've got them all ready, and I'm sure everybody's eager to see. So I'll let you kind of guide us through. So here comes the first one. So tell us what we're looking at here.
Okay. Well, I tried to give a sort of representative example of what you would see on the site. This is the Expo access area, which was the main sort of central thoroughfare that ran through the site. If you're familiar with Shanghai and you're familiar with being on the river, the site actually straddled the river on both the Pudong and the Puxi side. But here on the left-hand side, you see the China Pavilion in the background, which is about 200 feet tall. And then the Expo axis, the beginning of the Expo axis here on the right, which had restaurants, and it was a transportation corridor that sort of cut through the site. And these two buildings, these two structures will be permanent to the site. So even if you go to Shanghai 5, 10, 15 years from now, you should still see this. And of course, everything else will have changed by then.
So like the Unisphere at the New York World's Fair from 1964, it'll
Yeah.
remain there as a kind of a landmark.
Or the Eiffel Tower from 1889.
Are those actually fountains that the people are walking through? It looks like some kind of mist.
Yeah, there's like fountains and mist, and they had like different exhibits here and or different interactive type things all throughout the site. So that's what you're looking at here.
Okay, well, let's take a look then at another picture, and we'll go forward.
So it's just another shot of the China Pavilion. I included a few in here. You'll see a little rabbit character, which is the Macau Pavilion before that, and Hong Kong. And this is from the sort of other end of the Expo axis.
Okay,
So,
and a nighttime shot, obviously.
yeah, obviously.
And let's see, so we go.
And then this is the base of the China Pavilion, just sort of to show you the scale of the site.
Now, they made those pillars look like wood blocks, but obviously they're too big to be wood. Is there some kind of steel or ceramic? Or
Yeah, it's all steel and glass. And the pavilion, well, the site, the expo closes October 31st, but after that happens, after about a month, the pavilion will reopen, and presumably it'll have different contents in future decades. But it will definitely be a future landmark there in Shanghai.
All right.
It's just a shot to sort of give you an idea of the crowds, and this is the China Pavilion in the background with the Nepal Pavilion on the right. So with 190 countries, there's a lot to cover and a lot of people to see. So you can sort of see the sort of scale of the site there. And
was it very crowded during the period that you were there? You were there during, was it August or
I was
July?
there in actually May and June. I was there in the first and second months of the expo. It runs 6 months long, and it's very crowded. Some of the pavilions, such as Saudi Arabia and Japan, the lines are running like were running like 5 to 6 hours in length, and I understand they're like getting to be like 7 hours long now. But not all the pavilions are like that. There are some that you can, they have short walks, or you can walk right in. And then there are different things you can do if you go right at the end of the day. The lines get a lot shorter as you get toward closing time, and there's certainly plenty to see there. And a lot of people focus themselves on the Japanese at the Saudi Arabia pavilion just because of their standouts. But there's a lot to see there. Even if you go to East Timor or Estonia or some of the countries that people don't always think of.
Well, certainly it's kind of a graphic design paradise, isn't it?
Yeah.
And architecturally, there's such a feast, really, of styles and things to look at.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at another one then.
Yeah. So this is the Japan pavilion, which is one of the ones I mentioned had a huge wait. And you're right, there is a lot to see there. And most of what you're seeing in these photos are outdoor shots. But you can sort of imagine, like here in the Japan pavilion, there's lots and lots of exhibits, including some examples of robotic technology that's new, and a rather nice live performance that takes place that combines live performers with robotics and new transportation technologies that they're proposing. So you could imagine why the line is so long for this.
And they even have trees.
So.
They look kind of like bonsai, but I guess they're regular trees. Yeah. The shape almost reminds me of a Pokemon, but I guess that's not the the theme that they were doing then.
No, I think purple silkworm is the nickname that they gave it, and it's the local Shanghaiese had given that one.
Purple silkworm. Okay. And this is
And
Korea, I guess, huh?
this is North Korea, which is South Korea, of course. I've been to 8 World's Fairs. South Korea is always there. This is the first World's Fair that North Korea has taken a part in, and I kind of threw this in because they're right next to the Iran Pavilion.
Yes.
So Westerners quickly dubbed this the axis, sort of tongue-in-cheek, dubbed it the axis of evil square. Which is kind of ironic that North Korea and Iran were right next door to each other. But
and everyone coexisting in harmony, right?
Yeah,
Just
well,
like
at least in those 2 square miles, that's the case.
Let's take a look farther along. And now this is
That's the United Arab Emirates Pavilion, which was designed by the British architect Norman Foster. And talking about coexisting, you'll see on the right-hand side another building that sort of complements it is the Israel Pavilion. So you can sort of see that even at least in these 2 square miles, you have coexistence happening. And then, of course, in the background is the China Pavilion again that you've seen before.
Yeah, so it's almost like Star Trek, isn't it? All the nations live together in harmony, at least for the duration of the World's Fair. All right, let's take a look at another one. And this is
a closer view of the Israel Pavilion. So no matter what the pavilion is, there's lots of different kinds of exhibits on the inside, and it's like Christmas morning. You never know what's going to be on the inside until you're there, and that's kind of one of the fun things about expos is that each pavilion is designed by a different group of people. So sometimes there'll be live performances inside, sometimes there'll be static exhibits, sometimes there'll be filmed exhibits in 3D, and there are all kinds of exhibits. And in the case of Israel, you had a sort of 360-degree film that you saw on the inside.
Was it projected there on the glass and kind of exterior, or was there a theater inside?
There's a theater on the inside,
okay,
where it has like 360-degree, and it presents Israel in sort of a different way that maybe you thought of it traditionally. A lot of people in themed entertainment are very familiar with Epcot, and to me, World's Fairs are kind of like Epcot, except whereas the pavilions at Epcot that most Americans are familiar with are more about those countries traditionally. A World's Fair is more sort of about its aspirations and what it hopes to be, and probably and if it's successful, challenges people's preconceived notions of those countries.
Now, Epcot is environmental prototype city of the future, right? Or
it was originally meant to be the environmental prototype. Experimental prototype community of tomorrow.
Okay.
Although they've sort of strayed away from what it stands for and just kept the Epcot name.
But it's still sort of futuristic in its emphasis? Is sort of what could become in the future? Or is it more summarizing what's there now in a lot of these exhibits?
Well, Epcot itself, there's 2 parts of Epcot. Not to stray too much away from the whole World's Fair part, but the Future World, Epcot's sort of divided into 2 parts. The Future World Expo, which is more about technology and the possibilities of future, and then the World Showcase at Epcot is more sort of similar to the national pavilions that you'd see at a World's Fair, and with those they tend to be kind of stuck in time. The British Pavilion is more about traditional Britain, whereas at an expo like this, which you'll see the British Pavilion coming up in a while, you'll see that it's a very different Britain than you might have expected, and it's very sort of experimental.
All right, let's take a look at another picture here.
This is actually the Taiwan Pavilion, and you can imagine the challenges of the architects and designers from Taiwan designing a Taiwan Pavilion that exists in the People's Republic of China. And I thought they did a sort of enviable job where they really presented their island and kind of tipped that balance between they're showing their independence and also showing that they're Chinese as well. And there's always a diplomatic tiptoeing that goes on at these things, and it was certainly the case with the Taiwan Pavilion. But it was designed to look like a lantern, and as you went inside, you were asked to choose a wish for the future. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of sort of between the lines that you could perhaps read into some of their wishes for the future.